come in a number of different names. They can be called double moon knives, or they can be called sun and moon knives, or even Mandarin Duck Knives. However, they're basically all the same knives. The one I prefer is the one with a longer knife on one end. You can get them where they have equal, that's the double moon knives in particular, they have equal knives. I prefer the one with the long knife, you can do much more with that. This one has this little knife here away from this knife here. What should happen is this one should continue with that one, which it does. This one should continue with that one, which it doesn't. For some reason they put this one down here. It's probably a safety feature, but originally they had them just two moon shapes, or a sun and a moon shape, whacked together, and that was your knife. But this is all we can get. They're actually banned in Australia, so it's very difficult for me to get them into the country. I've had a great deal of difficulty getting these ones into the country. So I'm stuck with these ones. So they're very good, mind you, and at least they're metal, so you can get the idea of the correct shape. Probably one of the most deadly short-range weapons ever invented, for obvious reasons. Sharp, 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 sharp. Point, 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 point. So 4 points and 9 slicing sides. And you double that up. So you've got 2 of them. It's an absolutely amazing weapon. And the form is absolutely amazing for health, as well as if you can walk down the street with these, of course, as well as self-defense. It's just so deadly. And you've got to be very careful. In fact, my children train with wooden ones that I made for them. And even then you do get a bang here and a bang there, because you're just going everywhere with this thing, and you can, there is the love of doing moves like this, for instance. You've really got to be careful, see? You're really careful of that. You've got to move your hand exactly. But that teaches you how to move your hands in a very peculiar Bagua way. If you cut yourself, you're not doing it right, in other words. Moves like that, for instance. Very danger of straight into that wrist area there. But you've got to make it this, of course. Movements like this. You've got to be careful not to cut your finger off there, because that's what could happen. So you've got to be very careful with these things. In fact, it's my idea that all police officers should walk around with a set of these, you know. Against edged weapons, that's what they're used for. In ancient times, of course, there'd be swords, there'd be broadswords, there'd be spears, and other edged weapons. And these were specifically designed to defend oneself against edged weapons. So you've got moves like that. You can hook in there. You can hook in there, of course, and then come down with a strike. Whoa, lovely, into the temples, like this. You can come up, cut the wrists, and then come in with a strike with the 2 knives here into the neck, for instance, and then chop two swords down and then come into the neck, for instance. So it's also used for instance, these sort of moves here. You trap the attacker's sword and flick it out of his hand. Flicking, because you've got a trap, you see, in these 2 hollows. You might have it trapped in here. Out like that. There it goes again. So there are many, many different ways you can use these knives. They're very, very useful weapons. The form that I'll be covering is an original form. However, being an original form, it was invented when the inventors of this stuff were all very, very fit. And there are some moves in here which it's not advisable to do unless you are fairly fit. For instance, you've got something wrong with your hips, something wrong with your flexibility, for instance, you wouldn't do some of these moves. You do them in an easy way, which I'll show you on the tape. I'll show you the easy ways to do some of these more difficult movements. You've got leaps in the air, come down into a single foot posture, for instance, from the air. So I wouldn't advise people who have anything wrong with their hips or flexibility to do those movements. But I'll be covering easier ways rather, to do this. It's quite a strenuous form. It's excellent for fitness. If you can get this going, these things weigh quite a bit. They're probably, I don't know, kilo and a half each, and they're quite heavy. And they may not feel like much when you first start, but once you've done the whole form, your arms are just hanging off you. So it's excellent for the upper body because you've got weights in your hands. It's really excellent for the lower body because you've got a lot of squats to do, a lot of squatting movements as well. There is one kick in the whole form as well. The form is done as all Bagua around the circumference of a circle. However, you don't have to stick specifically to that circumference. There are times when you actually, for instance, walk through the middle of the circle and then back on a tangent back the other way to get to the other side of the circle. But it has to be related to the circumference of the circle, otherwise it's not Bagua. In some of the competition forms using these knives now, they've just abandoned the circle altogether. And to my mind, that's just not Bagua. You'll notice there are quite a number of times where I do actually go off the circumference of the circle, but it's just like a little round bit off it and then back onto the circumference, because that's the only way to do the form. It's not as pedantic as the empty-handed form, however.